What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Finding Purpose podcast. Starting this year off with a bang. We already had some excellent guests. Shania last week, she was absolutely amazing. Really just talking about how she transitioned at such a young age from her roots, her Trinidadian roots. I really encourage everyone to check out that episode. And the week before, we were really able to dive into Texas-based Maria Rodriguez, her journey to entrepreneurship. And it's just such powerful stories that we were really able to kick off this year, which really precludes me to talk about this upcoming guest. I met him actually via social media. We were going back and forth. He reached out to me and, you know, I dug into what he's doing, and he is the founder of his own production company. Bronx native, came from humble roots, to say the very least, and really just built a name for himself and found himself in his purpose of storytelling. None other than Will La Salle. I'm so grateful to have you here, Will. I really think that it was a force that kind of connected us together. When we talked on the phone, you talked about how purpose-driven you are in your mission in creating movies. He's created 6 movies. He's got the Halo trilogy, correct?
Yes.
Which was their first project. I believe the mission is for La Salle Production is to revolutionize the world of independent filmmaking.
Yes.
And I think that's such a awesome mission. So everyone, we're going to dive into Will's story because it's fascinating. Well, I really don't want to waste any time and just kind of jump into just early life and your upbringing and the Will La Salle story.
Thank you for having me. I've always had a passion for filmmaking growing up. My mother was a single mother in the Bronx. She worked 2 jobs. She went to BCC College. My sister basically raised us. We grew up in the projects. My father left when I was 3. And I didn't have a father figure growing up. So that was very important to me. So I turned to film. I used to watch Rocky movies all the time. Rocky 3, Rocky 4 is my favorite movie. So basically, Sylvester Stallone raised me. He became that father figure for me. And I was fascinated by the world of film and just how I felt when I watched the film. I was so engaged and so driven by what I saw. I saw the underdog coming back from adversity, and I saw myself in Stallone. Fast forward to 2019, I'm in the gym, I'm working out, and I started having these visions coming to me. And I left the gym, went home, wrote the script for my first film, Hilo. I didn't go to any fancy film schools. I didn't have any film experience. I certainly didn't know what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. Hired a film production company. We went out to Shelter, Connecticut, and we filmed my very first film called Hilo.
That's awesome, man. When you were growing up, why film was an escape to you?
Yes.
What was the environment like where you felt that you gravitated towards that? Did you come from a big family?
I do. I come from a big family, and I grew up in the projects.
Yeah.
So what was around me was nothing but negativity. It was drug dealers. It was people getting killed. It was everyone doing the wrong things, turning to drugs, turning to alcohol. And I said, okay, I'm better than this. This can't be my life. And so I wasn't even allowed to go outside most of the time. It was so dangerous. Yeah, my mother used to keep me inside. So that's where I just started watching movies after movies after movies. She refused to let me go outside. So I was like, all right, well, I would just sit down for hours. And I was fully engulfed in this. I was just so fascinated by it. But it took me years later to really feel like I had the permission to actually pursue my dreams, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And were you how many siblings do you have?
I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers.
Okay. And, growing up and you're pouring yourself into movies, where do you fall in that line?
I'm the oldest son, so I am 4th. I'm the 4th child. 4th, yeah.
You're the 4th child. So your sisters are
my sisters are older than me, yeah.
That's wild. What was it like, that dynamic growing up? Obviously, you're their baby brother, the first
Yeah.
baby brother.
Right.
What was that like?
I'm not really close to my sisters, but
Okay.
I mean, it was, my older sister, she took care of us.
Yeah.
She did the best she could. She gave up her childhood to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that. And it was different because I didn't have a father figure. So like that was who cooked for us when mom was working and mom was, doing what she had to do to provide for us. Listen, we were so poor that my mother used to have to get credit at the bodega across the street to feed us. But my mother do whatever she had. She made sure we never went hungry. And a lot of people look at me and they see this image and they're like, well, look at this guy, man. He has it together. But I'm so far from that.
Yeah.
I've been homeless. I've been through, everyone's got a story, right?
Everyone's got a story,
It's
yeah.
not a pity party, but it's also just, in order for a man to know where he's going, he must first know where he has been.
Absolutely.
That's what I truly believe. And for me, it was just resonating with the fact that I just wanted better for my life. I saw what everything else was around me and I said, well, this can't be my life. My life has to be completely different than what was around at the time. And that's what it became. It just became this drive of just being better than outdoing my dad, first of all, outdoing him to every level that I could possibly do. I looked at him as I was like, okay, well, I can't be anything he is. Because I looked in the mirror and I said, well, I got to filter out all his bad and take his good. Mm-hmm. That's the hardest thing to do, is to break those generational cycles of trauma, of things that you think are normal and they're just not. And for me, it was just knowing that I deserve more. I was destined for greatness and I just wanted to be different. They always say it is good to stand out, but it's even greater to be outstanding.
I love that, man. And you talked about how you had a good role model. You had a good example of a role model who is what you shouldn't be.
Right.
And, as you were growing up, you turned to movies and you discovered the Rocky movies and you discovered Stallone. And let's talk about that for a second, because mentorship is a huge part, I believe, in how people find purpose. Having a nice blueprint in another human being as to who you want to emulate. What initially drew you to him?
Honestly, it was just the way he was in the film, the way he was in that particular film, the fact that he wasn't fighting Apollo Creed to win. He was fighting to go the distance. He was fighting to prove that he belonged. And I saw a lot of me in him. I was like, okay, well, this is definitely me. So how he was training in Russia and just going through all of these different obstacles, trying to show the world and trying to prove to himself that he had the it factor. Yeah. And that to me was my life. It was like, okay, well, my whole life people have looked at me as a weirdo. This guy he's into film, because I didn't fit in. I wasn't into sports. I wasn't into any of these things that most of these guys are into. I didn't go out drinking. I was very boring. So to other people, I was a weirdo. I was a nerd. I liked comics. I liked going to Comic-Con. I liked watching cartoons and watching movies. That was what brought me joy. So a lot of people looked at that and they were like, well, this guy is a little weird, It didn't matter to me. What mattered to me was my purpose. Yeah. Which was, I knew very young, and this is going to sound a little crazy, I was always going to be in the film industry in some capacity. I just felt it. I just knew. I was like, this is what I can see myself doing. But years later, I just didn't feel like it was possible because, when you get older, they tell you, get a job, get a pension, get benefits, you want to set yourself up for the future. And listen, I spent 17 years working for the city of New York. I was a New York City correctional officer and I was an NYPD school safety agent. This 17 years. Now, I already had spent 17 years of my life doing what didn't bring me joy. And so when I left the job, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to spend the next years doing what I want to do for me. Yeah. And my purpose was to make films. I feel like that was my calling. It was never more certain to me than when I first stepped on the set and I made Hilo. I said, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, this is it. There's nothing else. My wife thought I was crazy. I bought $10,000 worth of equipment. She's like, you don't know how to use any of this. She wanted to kill me. And she's like, I don't understand. You're hiring all these different people to shoot your films. It's costing you X amount of dollars. So listen, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is what I love to do. Like, when you find something you love, that's it. Like, there's nothing greater than that. And most people spend their whole lives searching for that. They work these jobs and they give everything to these jobs, and then they get fired or they're just not fulfilled. And I just didn't want to live like that anymore. I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I don't need anyone's permission to do it. And that's it.
I mean, what was it like before you discovered that? I mean, obviously you said that like you noticed that there were things that other people were interested in that you weren't interested in. And frankly, yeah, I mean, like in a way, like visually, aesthetically, like people would think you're an athlete, or people would think like,
Right.
you know, like you're anything that like a traditional male would like, obviously he likes. How was that just kind of like almost feeling displaced, where it's like, okay, like that's not what I want to do. And people are painting me with this broad brush. What other things did you try along the way before you discovered film?
I tried sports. I really did. I got into like softball and stuff like that. It just wasn't me. I was playing basketball. I played basketball and I was good at it.
Yeah.
I was actually good at basketball, believe it or not. I could shoot. I could lay up. I played in tournaments. It just never felt right to me.
Yeah, it wasn't your calling.
It wasn't my calling. Like I loved it, but I wasn't like, it was like, okay, to stay in shape, you know, this is what you do. There wasn't really much to do growing up in the projects. It was, you know, shots rang out. Like, all right, we're running in the house. We don't know what's happening. So my childhood was hectic. It was a very delicate part of my life where my mother was always worried, because she was always like calling my sister, hey, is everything okay? I know something happened. There's cops around the building. There's cops here. It was different than most people and most of what they were used to. And listen, I wouldn't change it for the world, because it made me who I am today.
Yeah. I mean, how is the way you grew up translated into the work that you do now?
So I use a lot of my experiences coming from the urban areas. A lot of my films, I use all of that and I transcend it and put it into each film. So there's always a piece of culture, a piece of experiences that I've had growing up there. It's become who I am. Like I use it for film.
I mean, yeah, particularly Hilo. I know Hilo has the main characters are law enforcement officers, correct?
Yeah, so Hilo's like it's a
Hilo, sorry.
Yeah, Hilo, Vase,
my bad. No,
tomato,
my bad.
tomato. It doesn't matter. But the Hilo's about two corrupt officers, myself and a guy named George Rivera, which is Gorgeous George, and they end up being very corrupt. And then the second film, I go on like a redemption arc to try to right my wrong, and then things happen. But it is about the Hilo police, but it's more about an underground syndicate.
Was it inspired by things that you had witnessed, or things that you knew were going on that you wanted to share in a way where it can be received as art, but also send a message? Because I feel like behind everything that you do, you're sending powerful messages.
Right. Hilo was just something that
Are you even allowed to say that?
I guess.
I'm not trying to get people in trouble.
But Hilo was just something that I wanted to make. I saw this red jacket in Zara. You know the store Zara?
Yeah, dude.
My wife and I we were in Cross County. I'm going down the escalator. I see this red jacket. She goes, don't even think about it. I'm like, listen, all right, if this is my size, if my size is there, I'm buying this jacket. It's like, I do not want to see you in that jacket. You buy it. We're done. She was like flipping out.
One of those shiny jackets?
Oh, it's a red leather jacket. Ever seen Eddie Murphy's Delirious?
Oh,
like
okay.
that. It was a red leather jacket. And
That's
she's
so
like,
funny.
so I said, I'm buying it. It's meant. So I knew when I saw the jacket, I was like, I'm going to use this for this film. And I had this vision. I was like, all right, whatever it is, it's going to be. That was really the key factor. A lot of people don't realize that red jacket, you associated immediately with my character in Hilo. But Hilo was more of me getting my feet wet in the film industry. Like, all right, let's try something new. Let's do something that's a little bit different. That's all it was. Security guard is really my life story.
Yeah.
In film. It's a lot of what you're going to see with the character Omari Russell, who's played by James B. Randolph, the actor who's phenomenal. That is a lot of me as a school safety agent. I don't know if you've seen the trailers, and he says, it's a stop sign, not a Coke sign. I used to yell at cars because I used to have the stop sign in my hand, and I just thought it was comical, so I put it in the film.
What did you learn about yourself? Because, I think when you do things for the first time, that's like where you're going to learn the most. You know, like I know, like my first podcast episode, for sure, I knew what questions to ask, how to steer a conversation. There were a lot of things that I thought I knew. Right. The biggest thing I learned, and I always learn when I'm doing something for the first time, is how much I don't know.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
So what I've learned is I am very impatient. I am very impulsive, I want things done right away. And it's just not a realistic expectation. I put that upon people. And when people are not up to par with that, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, I don't understand. There needs to be a sense of urgency here. And I think that's something that I have to work on. And it's something I learned about myself very early on, is that I like to over deliver.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who over promise and under deliver. I like to over promise and over deliver at the same time. So for me, there's a sense of urgency. I know that I like to get things done. Like if I say I want to do something, it's like I'm doing it like now.
Yeah.
Like it's happening now. My wife is like, that's not realistic. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, we're doing it now. Like I'm writing the script. I'm getting it done. We're going to film it like every year. We're going to film from this time to this time.
That's so funny.
And people are like, you're nuts. Like you're making a film every year. I'm like, oh yeah. I'm going to film from June to November. I'm going to edit from November till February. I'm going to release the film in the premiere March privately. And then I'll release it in the summer. And I've done that every year. It's just that obsessiveness. I am obsessed with being the best at everything that I do.
That's awesome. And it's so funny you talk about impatience. You can ask my producer here, you know, like I am so impatient. Like, and when it comes to, hey, like, is this uploaded? Hey, why didn't this drop? Hey, and like, I'd probably drive him crazy, you know, but I'm kind of in the same way. And yeah, like kind of taking a step back and understanding that like, God, everyone's not on the same timetable as I am. Like give people some grace. You know, and you know, I'm getting a little better at it, and it's something that I'm definitely going to have to do now, obviously in my new role here, where it's like, there's going to be a learning curve, not only for me, but for them, because we're going to have to adjust to people. And obviously like in the film industry, you're dealing with all these different personalities. I want to talk about how do you manage these personalities, and what skills do you use that you accrued over the years that you think really allow you to do your job effectively?
I'm glad you asked that, because the film industry is very cutthroat. Let me just say that. But I will tell you that managing personalities, ego is the biggest and the hardest thing to manage. You're managing different characters, different personalities. I have great actors and actresses. So I've been fortunate enough to only deal with a few of those bad apples who are no longer with the company. But when you're managing egos, I always tell people, leave the ego at the door. Ego will, even me, I have to check my own ego. So it's just the honest truth. But it's when you're dealing with different people and different personalities, I know I can't do certain things with certain actors, right? I know that if I have to critique, I critique in private and I praise in public. I know with this actor, okay, he's not going to respond well to criticism if I do it in front of people. I don't do it to any actor, period. But I'm like, okay, let me approach him a certain way. You learn to delegate and you learn to deal with, I would call it obstacles, right? You move past them by, I have this acronym called SOAR, supersede obstacles around rejection. So, supersede obstacles around rejection. Yes, that's right. I wanted to check that. But yeah, and it's just, you know, we come together. I tell the guys, listen, this is what we can do. And the good thing about it is that we're like a family. So we all get along. We all work it out. If there's any disagreements, which there are rarely any, but we come together. Hey, well, how do you feel? I always involve the cast. I'm always like, okay, how do you feel about it? I give them a lot of freedom. I let them know, okay, listen, this is a collaborative process. You don't work for me, you work with me. Yeah. I think that transcends better.
It's totally a much better strategy. And it's so funny that you say that, because that's exactly what I'm doing now. You know, I told you I just got this new role here where it's, you know, I'm meeting with everyone on the team, man. You know, I'm meeting with everyone on the team, and I'm just kind of like, hey, like, I just want you to know, like, I'm on your team, you know, and we will work collectively together to make the team better. But I don't want you to think that you can't come to me for something. I also don't want you to think that I know the answer to everything, because I do not. Right. And the thing I can promise you is, if I don't know the answer, I'll find it for you. And I think having that kind of relationship in a leadership position, which is what you're in when you're running the show on a set, is so important. You know, obviously that first experience with Kilo, everything probably didn't go as smoothly. How do you deal with setbacks at real time? And what have you done to make sure that you don't repeat those same missteps? So what I've learned in doing this is I have to be very selective on who I let on my set. I am very selective on what actors come on. I don't allow other directors to come on my set. And I'll tell you why.
most of the time, almost all the time, I'll say, they'll come in and their agenda is, hey, I like this guy's talent. I'm going to go and poach and steal his talent. That's what they do. I've had this issue plenty of times where those individuals are no longer here because I say, listen, hey, other unions and other jobs, let's say Coca-Cola, for example, they're not going to go to Pepsi's headquarters and say, hey, let's hand out cards.
Yeah.
It's just certain things you just don't do. So I've learned that. I've had a lot of guys come on, steal my cast, or, you know, and then that just becomes another issue because now it's scheduling conflicts. Now you're talking about from a director's point of view, from a CEO's point of view, it's like, okay, to the actors, oh, he's taking opportunities away. He's saying, you know, we can't work with this guy. No, I'm saying that if this guy's interested, the right thing to do is to have directors talk. Hey, Will, listen, I'm interested in this actor or actress. What do you think?
Yeah.
Most of the time, I'll say, hey, man, listen, go for it. Listen, we're filming from June till November. As long as nothing conflicts, so we don't go over the schedule, I don't have a problem with it. The guys in the industry will come in and try to steal or replicate what you have. Take pictures, videos, steal your ideas. So it's a very cutthroat business. So you have to be very strategic. You have to be, you know, you just learn. I'm learning something new all the time. And so that was one of the biggest things I had. And the way I describe it is you have this garden and you have a guy coming in saying, hey, I want to help you water your garden and grow your flowers. But what he's really there to do is to take your flowers.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of
wild.
that. It's a lot of that.
You know, it's funny because I had my friend, and it's funny, like folks like you know, I have a lot of right-brained people and then the artist section where it's like left-brained folks. Yeah. And I had my friend who's like a world-renowned mentalist, and he discovered that was his passion early on. And when you're in that like performing art, you know, were you acting yourself like growing up? Like, would you do like drama or any of that? No?
I am a terrible actor.
Really?
I have no business acting at all. I belong behind the camera. My cast will definitely agree to that. James, Rob, they will all tell you, Yanko, they will look at you and say, Will's a terrible actor. I think I'm a terrible actor. Okay. I think I belong behind the camera. And I'm honest about that. I never said I was the greatest actor. I said I'm the greatest independent filmmaker, not the greatest actor. But no, I've never been into the drama stuff. I have acted in my films for the last 5 films I was in. Security Guard is the only film I'm not in. I'm not acting. Thank God.
And that's the one that's about you.
Yes.
Let's talk about that career, you know, and let's talk about the career as a correctional officer, because obviously that like those are both jobs that require not only a lot of mental capital, but physical capital as well, and also patience, which is what you said.
Which I lack.
How did you get into that?
I took a civil service exam. I was a school safety agent, and I needed more money. We don't make a lot of money. Making $27,000 a year, okay? And I had the guys I was working with, when I told them I wanted to make films, they laughed at me. They were like, hey, man, you make $27,000 a year. What are you, crazy, man? I needed more money. That's why we all do what we do, right? We need more money. We realize it's not a livable wage. So I took the test, got into being a correctional officer. Let me tell you something. That is gladiator school. I think everyone in their life should work in a jail. I'll tell you why. You're always one decision away from a totally different life. And that will put that into perspective for you. A lot of people, what they don't understand is how mentally daunting and tasking being a correction officer in New York City on Rikers Island is. It is literally not for the weak. Okay, I had my hat goes off to the men and women that are still there, that do 20-something years. That's insane. It changes your mental makeup. It changes the way you eat. It changes the way you talk. It changes your mannerisms. I found myself eating in the bathroom like an inmate. An inmate taught me my job. Hey, listen, how you make a jail protein shake. I was doing it at home. It's like, okay, I'm institutionalized here. Hold on a minute. I was very snappy. My attitude was snappy. If my tolerance was at zero, like I would find myself like flipping out. I'm like, okay, yeah, this isn't me.
Yeah.
This is totally changing me for the worst. I remember my wife was like, yeah, this is no good. Like, this is not you.
Yeah.
And I ended up leaving.
I mean, how did that change your perspective though? Like being in there and being around inmates and being in that atmosphere, what did that do for your perspective? So
I grew up in the project. So a lot of the guys, they knew. They said this guy he's not from the suburbs. They automatically knew that. But what I learned was interacting with these different inmates was a lot of them were incarcerated because of a decision that they made. Like I told you, you're always one decision away from a totally different life. And they would tell me their stories. And I would just give them my advice and say, hey, listen, man, you know, I understand. I was there too. Mm-hmm. But what it showed me was a sense of appreciating my freedom, appreciating my life, listening to their stories. They always they always say that if you think you have problems, take a group of people, put your problems down on a piece of paper, you'll take your problems back when you see what real problems are. I thought I had real problems. These guys had severe problems. I'm talking about like guys were like, it was insane. I had a guy named Paul Carter. He was in the car. He was in a car. His cousin had a gun, and he never told him, and they all got charged. Completely innocent. Yeah. He's like, I never had a record. He's doing time, 5 years.
That's wild.
You know, and he was like, listen, he never spoke to his cousin again. The guy was clean as a whistle. He's like, I used to work out. I was into this, and one decision. So it taught me that life is very precious.
Yeah.
We take a lot for granted.
You know, it's funny because like I've gotten in trouble over my illustrious career of making poor decisions prior to getting sober. And, you know, there were nights that I spent in jail cells, and there were conversations that I had with people. And one of the things that like struck me the most was they were good people, you know, a lot of them, where it was just kind of like, they were that, one decision or wrong place, wrong time really is a thing. And a lot of them really just cared about being back with their families. Mm-hmm. And what it taught me was once your freedom is taken away from you, the things that you took for granted matter the most.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I thought that was just like such a powerful like experience. I didn't think about it at the time. At the time, obviously, I was like angry and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, like now, like looking back on it, I do. And you being on the other side of it where it's like, hey, like I got to like maintain order. That's just completely blows my mind, you know, that perspective. But, you know, you talked about how like it also affected how you as a person and your loved ones could sense that. Like, what was that like, navigating that with your wife and making the decision to leave that job and then you went into the private security, correct?
Yep. Yeah. I'm in the private sector now. Well, I was exhausted. I was physically, mentally, I was depleted. I had nothing left. I was working 19-hour shifts. I was sleeping on my days off. I mean, when you do 19 hours working a regular job and working in a jail, it's two different types of, that's two different types of tiredness. You're talking about having to be on guard. Guys have nothing but time on their hands to try to shank you, hurt you, harm you if that's what they really want to do. Guys are more physically fit. You're not sleeping. You're not, you don't have the nutrition. You're not working out like these guys. These guys
see some shit, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. And these guys, that's all they have is time to work out. So they're getting stronger. You're not sleeping. You're depleted. You're tired. You have no sleep. You're at a great disadvantage, and it's a great danger. So I realized, I was like, okay, falling asleep at the wheel, driving home from Rikers. I was like, okay, yeah. I almost crashed my car twice. I was like, all right, this is out of it. I told my wife, I said, listen, I'm leaving. I don't care about the money. I'm out. I told her I'm resigning. Went to the Bolivar building in Queens, which is where their headquarters is. Resigned. They tried to talk me out of it like, you're crazy. You're making great money. I said, it's not about the money. Let me tell you something. I thought money was really important until it cost me my mental health. Seriously. I was like, you know what, man? Nothing is worth this. No amount of money. Nothing. Because if this is gone, everything's gone. I said, okay, you know what? Done. Left. Never looked back. And that was it. I mean, listen, it was hard financially. I was living according to what I was making as a CEO. So it was like, okay, how am I going to do this? Like I had to downgrade a lot of things, but you make way. I was much happier, and I felt like I had my freedom back. Like I was waking up in the morning and I was like, oh wow, I don't have to go to work. Sometimes I would still have that anxiety. Like, oh my God, my wife was like, no, you resigned. You're not going to work today. I'm like, it took me a while to took me almost a year to actually reset my mind to like not being a CEO.
Reprogram.
Yeah, it was insane. Like no one understands it unless you're a CEO in Rikers and you understand exactly what I'm talking about. To go back into civilian life and like I had no gun, so it was like a completely different. Like I was like, okay, yeah, this is You feel naked in a way. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm not like,
And also, like, I don't need to be on guard all the time. I don't need to like display mental fortitude all the time.
well, you have to be on guard, period. But
Well,
you should always be on guard. Yeah, no,
way.
yeah.
Like, you know, the one thing I want to ask you is like, do you think that because of some of the ugliness you were exposed to growing up and the ugliness that you were exposed to at Rikers, that almost your imagination was the only escape for you, which allowed you to translate that into a filmmaking career?
Absolutely. That is the perfect analogy. Exactly. That's what it was. It was my escape. It was my way of expressing myself through film. It was my way of sharing all the stories I had here. That is the best feeling in the world, when you can take things and ideas that you have in your head and you can write them on a piece of paper and then transform them into actual real characters and be like, wow, like this is everything I had in my head. Like, I can't believe this is like, and people love these characters and they're like, wow, man, that was amazing. Or, you know, that's the best feeling in the world for any creative, any filmmaker, any songwriter, artist, musician. They'll tell you that.
Well, dude, it's crazy because like having that kind of outlet, it's almost therapeutic for you. And it's funny because, you know, a lot of the times when I'm having these conversations on this podcast, I really try to steer it and like into like the personal story, but like, I can't even get you to talk about anything else other than filmmaking, which I think is amazing because it shows how driven in your purpose that you are in what you're doing. The one thing I wanted to ask you is some of your films, they have taken like positions, you know, like I know you had one where it was talking about officer was. I know you did an interview where you're talking about like fairness amongst say public safety officers or protection.
So I've done the Hilo trilogy, Graves, Oculus, and Security Guard.
But you've taken on there's some advocacy you were doing.
Oh, so you're talking about the news channels.
The news channels.
That's for Security Guard.
Yeah,
Yes.
I want to talk about that and how you've taken on a position through that. Share with me a little bit about that.
So I was invited by ABC, 7, Pix 11, News 12, and Good Day New York, and a couple other news organizations, New York One. Basically, the film, The Security Guard, I'm touching on mass school shootings.
Yes.
Which has been,
that's what I was talking about.
Which has been a social epidemic, a nationwide epidemic here in the US. So I was invited to discuss the film and the narrative of the film. And I was basically letting everyone know that this has been an issue that has divided everyone, right? Mm-hmm. Whether you're a Republican or whether you're a Democrat, you have an opinion about guns. You have an opinion about their place in society. And so making this film, I wanted to unite people and not divide them.
Yeah.
Right. So the film doesn't go Republican. It doesn't go Democrat. It goes down the middle. We explore both sides equally, mutually, with the respect and the integrity that they both deserve. You have the Republican Party on one side saying it's guns are not the problem, mental health is. Democrats on the other side, they're saying to ban all guns, we need stricter background checks. And so I wanted to explore both sides. And I thought that was very important because that's never been done in film.
Yeah.
Usually it's one side or the other. For the Security Guard, it's going to go down the middle. And I want to unite everyone. I want everyone to sit there and say, okay, let's hear the Republicans out.
Yeah.
Even if we don't agree with them. Let's hear the Democrats out, even if we don't agree with them. Let's hear the independents out, right?
Yeah.
I thought that was very important and very powerful. And the film is powerful itself because the reason it takes place in New York is because we have a sense in New York that we are invincible.
Yeah.
New Yorkers feel like, we're invincible. This can't happen here. And on the contrary, it can happen here. And that's why the story takes place in Brooklyn. And I wanted the actor to also be James B. Randolph. James B. Randolph is playing Omari Russell. And a lot of what happens in the film is part of my life.
Yeah. That's crazy. And you don't really strike me as an overly political person.
No, no.
But
I don't get into politics. It just politics and religion just divides everyone.
Yeah.
It just completely divides everyone. I never get into those debates, but I wanted to make the film bringing people together. It's not a political film.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
And that's noted. Absolutely. But I think it's cool that you're able to take your work and educate people in a way. And I also think it's also awesome that it's like given even a higher purpose, because at the end of the day, like you were inspired by Rocky at first.
Oh yeah.
you know, and now as your filmmaking career has evolved, who are other mentors that you've picked up along the way? And maybe talk a little bit about the importance of mentorship and the evolving nature of mentors as well.
I don't idolize celebrities at all. I just want to say, but if I had to say like what particularly got me into like the mentorship thing is I listen to a lot of motivational videos in the morning when I'm working out. I'm into like Motiversity. I don't know if you're into Motiversity. Motiversity, David Goggins.
David Goggins,
you have David Goggins. You have Kobe Bryant. Love Kobe. Love Michael Jordan. And a lot of these different analogies. And it really is something that I use as fuel for working out, for anything in my daily life when it comes to creating, when it comes to how I start my day. I make my bed every morning before I leave the house. First thing is that if you want to change the world, make your bed.
Yeah.
Make your bed. That's the way.
That was the speech by the Admiral at the UT commencement.
And that is very true. It's the first act of a productive day. I am very structured in that. I structure my time. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I don't really have a mentor.
Yeah.
I would say, like I said, Stallone, that character was my father figure growing up for me. That was who raised me. He doesn't even know he did, but that was what gave me that sense of escape.
Well, there's nobody that you pick their brain on, like if you have like a question or you're trying to figure something out.
Honestly, no. I'll put on go on YouTube, listen to like a Tony Robbins speech or something like that. I wouldn't say there's any mentors that I follow. I listen to different motivational TD Jakes. I listen to like different things on Motiversity. You should really check out.
Well, I guess I'm talking about like on like a personal level, like someone you can call or like
my wife
play roles like that.
My wife is my best friend. My wife will tell me if my film sucks. My wife will tell me that I'm being an a-hole. She would tell me. My wife is my rock. My wife is that's my best friend. My wife is everything to me.
That's all. How long have you guys been married?
We got married in July. So we just got married. We've been together 8 years. That is, I met my wife when she was 19.
Okay.
I knew the moment I met her, I was going to marry her.
Huh.
I had the feeling. She worked at a tanning salon in the Bronx, Electric Paradise. Met her there. Go figure, right?
That's funny.
Pump fist, not gas.
That's fucking
right?
crazy.
Jersey Shore. And then I knew. I said, this is the woman I'm going to marry. I said, imagine if I end up marrying this woman. And I never wanted to get married. I was a bachelor. I loved my life the way it was. I was like, nah. But I knew. I said, this is the woman I'm going to marry. That's my best friend. And so if I go to anyone for advice and mentorship, even though I don't want to hear half the things she's going to say because she tells the truth, we don't want to hear it, right? Yeah. As men, we don't like, all right. But my wife, yeah.
That's awesome. And like, I love how you have that type of relationship where you can lean on her.
Oh yeah.
And you can go to her. How has that affected, like, you know, you obviously pour a lot of energy into what you do. What do you do to make sure that everything is like you're watering all facets of your life?
Well, when you're the producer, when you're the director, when you're running a company, you're shooting the films and you're making a film every year, it takes a toll.
Yeah.
And I would be lying to you if I told you that everything was peachy and everything was great. The films take a toll on my personal life.
Yeah.
My wife was really not, and probably still is not, a fan of the amount of time I give these films that takes away from her and I.
Yeah.
But I think she's learned that, okay, this is what he loves. Filmmaking's not a hobby for me.
Yeah.
My day job is my hobby. Filmmaking's my life.
Yeah.
And I think she understands how obsessive I am with it. Like I don't stop talking about it. She's like, Will, I've heard about the films. I don't want to hear about it. Every time we talk about it, you bring up film. I'm trying to keep that in check, but it's hard when you love something so much. But balancing it's challenging. It is, because when you're running a company, I have to answer to 72 different actors and actresses. I'm sending out 1,000 emails a day. I'm updating everyone. I'm working with different people. I'm meeting on different news networks. I don't have a PR person. She's my PR person, my wife. So it can become very challenging. But I think it's important for me to acknowledge the fact that I have to learn to balance things out, because we don't want things to be, But that's a great analogy, because that's the truth. It's just learning that and just understanding that when you're giving so many different pieces of yourself, things will suffer, but I'm learning to be better with it. and she wants me to quit the filmmaking stuff. She's like, how many more films? I'm like, first I was supposed to just do
What does she do?
My wife's a teacher.
Okay. Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, you said that.
Yeah, my wife's a teacher. And then I was like, all right, 8 films in 8 years. And then I added one more film, which is Lucy, about the film on autism. She's like, now 9 films. I'm like, in 9 films in 9 years, then I'll retire and work for Lionsgate.
That's awesome, dude. I have a question. Like, what motivated you to pick these topics? Like, I know you have the movie, The Veteran, coming out in 2026, I believe.
Yep.
You have Lucy coming out afterwards. Now it seems like your career has kind of evolved to where you are picking powerful subjects and you're really digging into it. Where's that drive come from? How are you selecting these topics? Do these issues touch you personally?
A lot of them do. Yes, a lot of them do. So I wanted to be a filmmaker that just didn't make independent films. I wanted to touch on these social discrepancies and different challenges in society. So The Security Guard was the first film to move forward in doing that, which touched on mass school shootings.
Yeah.
Now, Veteran's going to touch on the opioid crisis, the homeless epidemic, mental health. I said to myself, if I'm going to make films, they have to resonate and touch everyone. I have to reach a wider audience. And there's no other independent filmmaker that's doing this but the Salle Productions. The next film to move forward is Lucy. Like you said, it's going to touch on autism. I don't think we've had a film on autism. Maybe Rain Man, right? With you remember that movie with Tom Cruise?
That was a great movie.
That was a great movie, but I believe he was autistic.
Yeah, he was.
There hasn't been a film made about.
I haven't seen that movie in years, but
Dustin Hoffman. It was Dustin Hoffman, but I'm making Lucy about. It's going to be about parents who have a child that they're older in life and they blame themselves, thinking that it was their fault that their child is on the spectrum. Lucy's on the spectrum. It's something that has never been done. It's something that in society we all think of, people who have kids later in life or anyone who has an autistic child. It's going to be very personal for them. And I want it to be. And so it has to be approached with a level of delicacy and a level of care when I'm making this film. Also, it's going to touch on the fact that the parents question the foods they were eating. Did that cause the autism or? But
are these inspired by just like things that you see in the news and you're like, why aren't we really amplifying the story? Or is it because, hey, like I know someone who went through this. Right. I saw them struggle. And you know what? Like I need to amplify their story because I know they won't do that for them.
It's both. Honestly, It's both. I know good friends of mine that their children are autistic or on the spectrum. And it's also the fact that no one's ever touched on these subjects. Yeah. So I needed to be the independent filmmaker to do that. Yeah. I needed to be the revolutionary to make that happen and shed light on these issues and give them a voice.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. I think that's like really important, the way that you do it so tastefully. And the way that you do it with that just really like maximizes the impact and makes it relatable for everyone, is tremendous. As you're attaching yourself to these powerful narratives, how has that changed you? Because obviously, with Lucy, with The Veteran, you're digging really deep into a very emotional component in society, but also like building that emotional connection with the audience has to require some emotional vulnerability on your part. So talk to a little bit about that.
I'm not a guy who likes to show vulnerability. I'll just tell you that. I do not show it. I think it's a weakness, but I'm learning that certain parts of me, it's okay to be vulnerable at some point. But I'm cautious with it because people use vulnerability against you. But to move forward, when we were filming The Security Guard, we're filming the end of the film. I'm not going to give anything away because I don't want to spoil anything. But what I will tell you is the cast got to see me. I actually cried. I was explaining to the cast. We were in an auditorium. It was the final scenes of The Security Guard. And I got choked up. And the cast saw that. They've never seen me ever get choked up, ever. As their leader, as the guy who's in charge, who's supposed to have all the answers, who's supposed to know everything but not know everything. They saw that and they started getting choked up. And it was powerful. It was like a ripple effect. And they were like, wow. Some of them walked away. because they've never seen me get like that. I don't think I've ever cried in front of my wife. So
Really?
no. And so, no, I don't. But I think that when they saw that, they said, wow, like it was deep. Just me explaining it to them. So I think it's touching me more and making me open up to things that are more like, okay, yeah, let me get a little more deeper on this. If I feel this way, I can only imagine when they see it, how they're going to feel.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie.
You saw the veteran trailer.
That's wild, and
they haven't seen it.
Everyone else is going to be able to see that as well. But I find it fascinating.
Thank you.
No, you didn't let me finish my sentence.
Oh, like,
I find it fascinating that you put together these works of art that grab people's emotions the way they do, and how guarded you are with your own. You know,
because I pour myself into the film. If I'm not vulnerable, then I'm pouring the vulnerability into the characters. Yeah,
but I mean, I think it's a testament to also just like your story and what you've overcome, and that's kind of how you needed to be for such a large part of your life. And now, like, all right, like I do have emotion. This is my display of emotion here that I'm pouring into my art, and I think that's amazing, man. You know, I really am excited to like be able to be the first person to share this trailer.
Yeah.
I really want you to just talk a little bit about it because I already saw it. My audience will be able to see it if they check the YouTube when we debut this episode. But talk a little bit about it because I was moved. I know Tyler was my producer.
I saw you guys moved. So the trailer is not going to premiere until March 30th, but we're going to premiere the full trailer for the cast and crew at the security guard premiere. I always premiere the trailer for the next film at the upcoming film. So I wanted to dive into the fact of Jose Torres, the character, played by Yanko Valentin Perez, the actor. I wanted to dive into making him invisible to society. When we were filming the trailer, people on Times Square were losing their minds. They thought that I was actually filming a homeless person. They didn't know he was an actor with his dog because that's how real it looked. The lady was screaming at me. She was yelling at me. She's like, "You're insensitive." And I had to pull her over. My buddy Mike DeSimone, who's also an actor, he had to go speak to the lady and a couple other people. They were videoing us. It was uncomfortable for them. And that's what we wanted. I wanted it to be uncomfortable. I wanted him to be invisible to society. Because let's face it, I'm guilty of it too. We walk past the homeless people every day, right? They're invisible to us at some point, right? To all of us. I mean, listen, we're guilty of it. We can be honest here. But I wanted to show that he is forgotten. He's a war hero. He's a war vet. And he served his country. But when society sees him, he's this frail man who has a beard and he's just, he's dirty. And to them, he's a nobody. And so it was important to me to give him a voice and to show the flashbacks when you see in the trailer.
Yeah.
But it touches on the opioid crisis, which is something that a lot of people are affected by or have family that have died from opioids or, you know, they had a back injury. You're going to see what happens to him in the film. It's going to be very tragic. The trailer is hard to watch. It is.
And you're going to be able to watch it right here, right now. So check it out.
Who are you? I'm a Marine. But you can call me a veteran.
That was powerful, man. Like that was so powerful. I mean, I got to see the whole thing. And when you drop it in March, it's like, I hope my viewers watch the entire thing, but I'm sure they're just moved just off that clip that Tyler was able to put together for my audience. And thank you for letting me be the first to kind of debut that portion of the clip.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, I'm really, really grateful to have been able to connect with you. And I really want to share people in my network with you because I think that, you'd fit in seamlessly with it, especially like with just the goal that you have set for yourself and building your career and like the level of passion that you put into your purpose. And, that's really what this is all about. I mean, I'd love for you to close just by, telling my audience how they can reach you. And I just, dude, like that trailer was amazing, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. You can reach me at www.lasalleproductions.com, or you can Google me, Wilfred La Salle, and all of my socials and everything will come up. But if I could leave you with one thing, I'm going to leave you with this. If you put the word extra in front of ordinary, you become extraordinary. And that is what La Salle Productions is. This is Wilfred La Salle, the greatest independent filmmaker in the world. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate you, man. And you'd always reach out to me, and I will be happy to connect you with Mr. La Salle personally.
Thank you.